Hey, welcome everyone into the Wells Tech Garage. As you guys can see, things are looking a little bit different today. You know, it's the new year, it's 2018. I wanted to change things up a little bit for the first class of this year. Joined here next to me is Peter.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks for being here again, Peter. For those of you that,
Always a pleasure.
that didn't get to meet Peter during the last class, he was introduced. He is our new Spanish trainer, and he will be starting up the Spanish training starting the 1st of February, because that's when our next class is. So Spanish training will be the 1st of February out on YouTube. So that's going to be found on the Wells VE channel. That is going to be our Spanish channel. And you'll find Spanish training at 2 o'clock Central Time on the same day of English that's happening at 11 o'clock. So, all right, Pedro got here. Pedro's here. Welcome to everyone. I've chatted back with most of you already in the comments section. Today, guys, I'm going to kind of do things. We don't have a car in the shop today. We don't have anything really planned. There's a couple different things I want to go over. I want to tell you guys a little bit about some new things that are going to happen this year. But really, this is going to be more of an AMA type of thing. I think that's why Eric must have went out yesterday and did his AMA quick before we got ours done. I saw that he did one yesterday afternoon, so he must have seen that we scheduled one and went out there and did it. So I want you guys to ask questions today if you have any good questions. The t-shirt giveaway is going to be a little bit different today. For this one, it's not going to be a question that I ask to you guys. It's going to be whoever asks the best question is going to win a shirt, and I'll give away 3 of them. So the 3 top questions, automotive related, are going to be shirt winners, and Peter and I will decide by the end of the class who that is going to be. Yes, Eric, you did steal my thunder. And Eric, I'll make you a deal. If you show up to Auto Mechanica this year, or Vision, one of the two, I'll bring you a Wells shirt that has a pocket in it. I'll hand it right to you. So then you can get your pocketed Wells shirt. It might be a sewn-on pocket, but you'll get your pocket nevertheless. All right. So it looks like the weather's keeping some of you guys out of work today. Pretty crazy going on the East Coast right now. So who's going to Vision this year? Who's headed to Vision? It looks like Oz said he's going to Vision. I think Keith is going. Peter and I will both be there. Mm-hmm. We're all scheduled up, ready to go.
And I am smiling. I'm just smiling on the inside.
Keith's asking a good question. Can I join in? Oh, sure, Keith. Let's see what you got. I'm sure you have great questions. But I'll tell you what, if I don't know the answer, I will find it somehow. But I know your goal is to go out there and stump us. So that's great. All right. I did want to go over, in a couple months ago, we were talking about Porsche Mike Burton was working on this Porsche Cayenne in his garage at home that had a timing issue. He sent me some pictures. He sent me this. This is a picture of his lab scope that we were looking at. I'll zoom in a little bit here. And this was bank 1 cam and this was bank 2 cam. For those of you that remember, I shared video and that kind of thing where this cam right here, this high spot here, was actually a missing tooth on the trigger wheel that was actually never found inside of the engine. So it was a broken tooth. He had to put a new camshaft in this car. But the car is now fixed. It's been fixed for a little while. I probably should have updated during the last class. But this is what it looks like now. A nice, beautiful pattern. That looks pretty good, right, Peter? Looks way better than it did.
Looks as it should.
Yeah. So these are just perfect examples of a known good camshaft scoping on this Porsche Cayenne. This one, not so much. So this is a known bad example and a known good. But the car is all fixed, and last time I talked to Mike, he did mention that his, I believe it was his son-in-law, was going to be trying to get rid of the car, trying to sell it. But it is running great. He said it's running perfect.
We already have a question here. They're asking if you're wearing your deodorant today. And well, here in Wisconsin, it's so
I'm
cold,
good.
there is no odor. So whether he's swearing it or not, one wouldn't tell.
That's true. I think we're up above 0 right now. I think we're at about 1 degree. Last time I checked the thermometer, it is a cold one, and it's been a cold for the last week or so. We've been
Sure has.
been below 0.
Though it does beat the blizzard of New York. There's one. What is the easiest way to test a coilover plug for secondary ignition that gives a clear pattern on the scope?
That is a great question. Well, primary is always going to reflect secondary.
Exactly.
So you
That's
could
the easiest to scope naturally.
You could look at the primary and hope that you're going to get a good enough pattern out of the primary. Otherwise, what I've also seen done is people taking the coil out of the engine and then putting basically a jumper wire in between the plug and the coil, basically a spark plug wire in between there, and then just hooking on secondary like that. I've seen that done. It's a 4-wire coil. It's a smart coil. If it's a smart coil, then Keith, I would say that you're going to want to probably pull that out and put like that jumper wire in between, and then grab a secondary, pick up that way with an inductive clamp. There might be another answer, but that's probably a lot of how a lot of people will do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's this? Cam and crank waveforms on a known good. Would it be best to unplug all cam phaser solenoids while gathering waveforms?
I would say yeah.
Yeah, be a good idea.
Yep. That way you know that
You have a base.
that the engine's at base timing. It's not being adjusted at all, especially on a multicam engine running 4 cams, maybe adjusting a little bit at idle. I would probably unplug those, and they should go back to base
It depends
time.
on what you're looking for in the end. I mean, at a lot of those waveforms, the known goods are going to reflect the variable valve timing in it anyway, because it's programmed. Yeah, it's programmed that way. Can misfires happening on one bank of a V-type engine throw variable timing codes without having an actual timing issue? Yeah.
Can misfires
Depends on the way they map out the logic, really.
the coding strategy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Depends if the misfire codes have thrown. Will the vehicle run a VVT test? Will it run a timing test? I guess it depends on.
Depends on make, model, and strategy.
Yeah. Apparently Keith's aware of this. He said no BMW questions.
I like that. Everybody hold it and put an amp clamp on his nipples. That's gonna work good.
Jurgen said, got a basic question. What are fuses? I think you're saying what are fuses for? Think about it for a minute.
Well, we always teach that they're for circuit protection.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell me something I don't know.
Keith mentioned resistance. A fuse is a slight resistance in the circuit, but it's not resistance that's bigger than the load or anything like that. I mean, the basic understanding is that fuse is protection for the circuit.
There's one. Quickly explain primary and secondary ignition. Well, primary is the lower current control side of things, and then the secondary is the high current, or the high voltage. I'm saying current, but
Yeah.
I mean voltage.
Voltage, yep. Your
The
back probed into
The
it.
low voltage is primary, the high voltage is secondary. That's where your spark plug is. The spark plugs, the wires, everything up on that side of it to the coil. And the primary is all the 12-volt stuff on the other side.
And on coils that are controlled not specifically at the coil, so like we'll call it like a 2-wire coil or something like that, where the control is coming from the PCM, you would see your primary waveform would reflect your secondary waveform. They would be very similar. They would look very similar, obviously with different amplitudes on the voltage levels, but they would look very similar. But then you get into a 3 or 4-wire smart coil where the module, where the command, the control is actually being done inside of the coil itself, inside of the coil unplug itself. Then it's going to be harder to capture that primary waveform, because you might just end up with a computer signal back and forth between the module and the coil and the PCM.
Yeah.
All right.
We got some cases here.
98 Ranger showing long and short term at -30, but the exhaust smells rich. Well, the word "but" in there is throwing me off. We're saying it's -30, Negative 30, that means that the computer is
It's
pulling
taking-
fuel
yeah,
back.
it's-
So we would expect that a negative 30 could be the upper limit of the amount of fuel that it can take away. So I would assume it probably would smell rich. Could be leaking injectors. You could have a
Restricted
fuel pressure
return.
restricted return, a fuel pressure regulator that's got an issue. Older Fords used to have a ton of regulator issues. You want to be checking that fuel pressure and make sure you're right in spec. If your fuel pressure is too high, you could end up having a rich condition.
A fuse is a resistance. That's all it is. Oh, there you go. I guess if you break it down into the simplest terms, I have a V8 with a dual overhead cam. The passenger side have a timing code, and the driver's side is fine. I scope both sides to compare waveforms. Yeah, you might even do the relative compression test there. That might come in handy right there.
Well, with that dual overhead cam, passenger side, timing codes, driver's side, fine. I would scope and then compare against the crankshaft pulley as well. Really with any dual overhead motors, any sort of multiple cam motors, you can always compare the 2 cam sensors or 4 cam sensors together, or you can compare them against the crankshaft or compare them against the crankshaft. But for something like that, you definitely want to know what a known good would look like. 06 Frontier V6 to test VVT and make sure both banks are at the same time. Where would you find a waveform to compare to the vehicle, excuse me, the vehicle being worked on? Mike's asking for where you can find known good waveforms.
Yeah.
There's pay to play places like IATN. That's probably a big one. They probably have one of the best waveform libraries out there, one of the most organized. You could start there, but again, you do have to pay to get into that.
That one's the most affordable of all the pay-to-plays, though. It's
Yeah.
like $20 a month or something.
Something like that,
19,
yeah.
I think it was 19 a month last time.
Then you could, a lot of the Facebook groups, there's a technicians training page, there's an automotive technicians page, there's a AES Wave Tech feed page, there's, I can't even remember all the ones that I'm a part of now, but many times there's known good waveforms in there, or you could ask in the group if there's any known good waveforms out there that anybody knows of, and they could send them to you. In this day and age, it's very, very easy to send information, especially if you're dealing with Pico files. You can send the Pico file and you can manipulate it right on your computer with the software. You don't even have to own a Pico scope to use the software either if you're trying to view the file.
There's one asking about a PO16 with a sludge motor, wondering if we would take the job and flush it or send it up the road. I guess that would depend on the customer. And, you know, if you know the guy and you know that he's not going to come back and haunt you because you told him that I can try to clean it and this may work or it may not, it may be a waste of money, you got to just know your customer, because, you know, if it's going to be one of those customers it's going to be a headache, then by all means, say goodbye.
Well, that's one of those disclaimer type of things, right?
Yeah, but they don't always hear the disclaimers. They rarely hear the disclaimers. So, yeah, like I said, know your customer. That's the way to answer that one.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. That's one of those gray areas, definitely. Does an oxygen sensor read the oxygen content in the exhaust?
That's what they say it does.
This is one of Keith's favorite questions, I think. I've heard this question before. To put it simply, I would say yes.
Textbook is yes.
To
I'd
talk
like to
about
know his spin on it.
the chemical reaction and the comparison. The oxygen content in the exhaust is being compared to the oxygen content in atmospheric, in the atmosphere. It's a comparison sensor across that zirconia element. It's taking how many oxygen molecules are here and are able to cross across that zirconia element that's in there, comparing to the oxygen content that's sitting inside of the reference air chamber. Here. Drawing pictures. Nope, let's bump over to this guy. So I think maybe the best, let's just stick with me for a second. So we have our oxygen sensor, you know, threads on here, whatever. Inside of this thing, let's just call this our zirconia element. So we have O2 sitting out here. This is our exhaust. These are all O2 molecules out here. Well, inside of our zirconia element here on a standard zirconia style oxygen sensor, there's a reference chamber. All right? This reference chamber is filled up with with air from the atmosphere. It's filled up with oxygen. So there's this transfer, this balance that happens across here. Either molecules travel this way or molecules travel that way, changing our voltage across this zirconia element. So to say that it's measuring the content of oxygen in the exhaust is, oh, what'd I miss? I'll get to it. We'll erase that. To say that it's measuring the content of the oxygen is tricky. That's kind of a, are people commenting on my drawing?
Yep.
Oh, God.
They're calling it out for looking a bit phallic.
All right.
Let's see. There was one up here about not the Pico, but the U-scope.
Here, does Wisconsin really make the best cheese? Of course.
Well,
we have the best cheese here.
Vermont's definitely puts a run for it, but the cheese over here definitely, you know, I'm from New York. I've tried lots of different cheese, and yeah, Wisconsin cheese is definitely better than Vermont's.
The best part here is most of the cheese factories, you can walk right in, you open the door, walk right into the cheese factory and get cheese that was made fresh that day. Cheese curds, we call it squeaky cheese because when you eat it, it squeaks. I don't know, it's just what we call it. It's good old Wisconsin.
Frank Gonzalez is asking, do you think the U-scope is worth it for a home do-it-yourselfer?
Definitely.
I guess that depends on the price. How much is that?
Under $500 for the whole kit. I believe you can just get the scope and the lead for under $200 if I remember right. It's definitely worth it if you're looking for a single channel scope for at home. Now, a lot of the things that we're doing require more than one channel. So if you can justify the cost as a single channel scope, yes, I would say that it's worth it if you're looking at crank waveform outputs or something like that.
Well, Sancte there says to check out Pico's 2204A for $115. That sounds like a bargain. If that's actually the price for a two-channel scope, then you can't beat that. That's although U-scope is definitely it definitely has its advantages. It's pocket-sized. You can pretty much take it wherever you go. Yay, the whiteboard of knowledge.
The whiteboard of knowledge, right? The tomato sensor.
You guys are terrible. Well.
Oh, man. We'll just ignore some of these comments here. Yeah, we do have the best cows, I guess.
It's probably just that we have the greenest grass, maybe.
Apparently Alejandro had a, yeah, there's a Spanish question.
Oh,
Alejandro Sanz, just up a little bit.
Ahora pienso que le falta solo gas. He thinks now it only needs gas.
Go up a little bit more. There was a longer comment with that.
Oh, okay. Mi carro no prende, solo hacía explosiones. En el mínimo, después de checar todo el injector del compresor, cambia cables, filtros, chate, nada, cambia cranks, y he sounds like he's fired off the parts cannon. He's got some popping in the intake there. The car doesn't start, and he has changed injectors. He's checked injectors and done his compression. Then he changed cables, gas filter. Changed the camshaft, crankshaft, and the module, and still nothing. So I think he's looking for some help there. I would start maybe checking for air. Do you have the right amount of air coming in, and do you have the right amount of air going out? You might have an exhaust restriction. You might have a vacuum leak. I mean,
could be a timing issue. If it's backfiring.
issue.
Maybe sparks happening at the wrong time. Maybe it's an old distributor car that was installed improperly or something like that.
Yep. Maybe I should tell him in español there. Hay que chequear por el aire entrando y saliendo del motor. Si hay un liqueo, una fuga de vacío o un bloqueo del escape, te puede dar esos síntomas. Y también Hay que chequear el tiempo de ignición y el tiempo de los válvulas, porque si está un diente o más que uno, pero 2, 3 dientes afuera de tiempo, también puede ser ese problema. So, hay que chequear esas 3 cosas también.
Sí. Peter just said that you should check some stuff on that car.
I just said what we said in English, more or less.
Perfect. Eric's asking, should I let the car warm up before driving? What are your thoughts on this highly debatable topic? It's right towards the bottom. I let my car warm up. I remote start it and let it warm up out in the parking lot. I think it's good to let it warm up. I know there's a lot of evidence going both directions. It is debatable.
It is. I guess what it is back when we used to drive carburetors, they wouldn't even run until they warmed up.
Sure.
And fuel injection kind of compensates for that. So for performance reasons, no, you don't. You can hop in and go. But is it good to rock your engine around like that with that ice cold oil that's not all over the place?
Transmission fluid's nice and thick.
Well, the tranny fluid's not going to warming the car up, but it's, the engine, to at least give it a few minutes to circulate oil when it's this cold.
I like to warm it up just because my seat heater turns on.
Sounds like they grow up in Spanish Harlem. What is that accent? I don't know. It's a New York, Long Island mixed with a little upstate. I don't know. That's I don't have the accent. You have the accent.
There you go. Yeah. Keith said, how do you test the proper amount of air entering the engine during cranking?
I would start with a smoke test or something like that, depending on what's easier. I mean, sometimes you can look at, it depends on what kind of PIDs they give you. Sometimes you can actually see load percentages and volumetric efficiencies and things like that on the scanner PIDs, but sometimes you just gotta do a smoke test. What do we got? Oh yeah, letting your car up. Yeah, I hear they're giving tickets out here. Around here, I think they have cars getting stolen suddenly, right?
No, I'm sure, yeah. But I heard there are certain states where if you're not in the car and it's sitting idling, that they can give you a ticket.
Yep.
Easiest way to warm up your car is in the cold is to rev it. Yep, just hop in and bring it up to $4,000 and see what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, who needs oil pressure? So it is in Michigan that they're leaving it unattended. Interesting. On NVLD evap systems, is it normal for them to not run the evap monitor with extremely cold temps? I would say, yeah. I'd have to look up NVLD off the top of my head. I can't remember, but most evap systems won't run at extremely cold temperatures. They won't run the test.
Here's intermittent misfire. I was reading.
O3 Expedition misfire on cold start on occasion.
New plug swap coils, yet misfire remains. How many miles are on this O3 Explorer?
Expedition, so it's a 542 valve most likely. Was thinking injector.
Injector, carbon buildup.
Vacuum leak, compression issue. You got to think of everything that can cause a misfire. He was thinking fuel injector next, but was wondering if there's any DIY way to test out those fancy electronic devices that pulse the injector. He's already checked PS fuel pressure. You could unplug the injector and put your test light across the 2 pins of the injector, and that would simulate the injector. If the test light blinks, you know that you're getting control from the PCM to control the injector. At least then you know that it's functioning.
Yeah, given the intermittent nature of the problem, and it's only on cold, then it's probably getting its signal. So good. Obviously check your Noid, but there's no easy way to check the spray off of those things. I mean, they're not even that easy to swap for a do-it-yourselfer. So process of elimination, it's usually how we arrive to an injector.
No. Frank's asking, do you know that trick that uses the mass airflow sensor, grams per second, I'm assuming he's talking about, to calculate horsepower and how it's done?
It's like, what is it, one
it's
per...
80% of the reading should be horsepower. Or it's vice versa. 80% of the horsepower should be the mass airflow grams per second.
I think it's I thought it was something about
the classes.
It's displacement times. You're looking at your displacement times. I think.
Yeah, in
idle and 5 when you're up at when you're at like 2,000 or 3,000 RPMs.
in that mass airflow sensor class that I did back in July, I believe it was, we talked about this, about how it's not really something that you want to have for an absolute for testing. But if you take we were working on that Chevy Colorado, if you take the horsepower that thing was rated at, and you take 80% of that, I believe is what the number was, that would be, or should be, your peak mass airflow grams per second at your highest reading. And again, that's not anything that you want to use that's a definitive, perfect test. It's more of a rule of thumb type of test that gets you close.
Oh, he means my accent in Spanish. Honestly, I don't even hear accents in Spanish unless you're from Argentina, then that's an easy one to pick up. I learned a lot of my Spanish kind of on the street. I did take it in school a little bit, but I learned it on the street first, so I don't know. I learned it a lot from Central American people. I don't know. You could probably tell me what my accent in Spanish is more than I can.
Glenn said here, can I reuse the water in my BMW air pump to bathe? You know,
Sure.
Glenn, that is being very efficient. You are a very green type of person. Good for you.
It's probably cleaner than most tap waters these days.
There was a lot of water that came out of that air pump, though. Mike Salazar said, I got a 13 Lotus with 19,000 miles with a bad engine. Revved it to 6,000 RPM cold last week, and the car blew white smoke and started to miss and never started again. Oi! He said he's putting a video up of it. That'll be really interesting. Looking forward to seeing that.
That sounds like an expensive motor.
Yeah. VE calculator, I don't have one that I recommend. What are you guys using for VE calculators?
I think OTC has one.
Yeah, somebody said here OTC's got a
yeah.
calculator. Keith did a link here to ATG training.
I always use that OTC one. And it says OTC is not good, do not use. All right. Like I said, there's a rule of thumb, and yeah, that's kind of, I use it so infrequently, I got to look it up every time.
Sure. The best way to remove spark plugs on a 543 valve.
Well, that's right up your alley there, Mike. By taking the motor out and putting a new one in?
Yeah. The best way to do it is do them every 30,000 miles. I spent a couple years at a Ford garage. The best way that I found to do it is to run a air injection, like a fogger, we use the BG air intake fogging kit. We would fog the intake. We would get that motor nice and hot. Then we'd get out our 1/2-inch impact gun and we'd zip them out. More times than not, we got lucky. I feel like if the plug's gonna break, it's gonna break. I know there's been some drama around YouTube with this lately. That's the way that I've done them. I recommend following the book. As a final answer, follow what Ford suggests on these. These have been problem engines from the beginning, from 04 to 08 and a half, these 3-valve motors. The way I did it was the 1/2-inch impact.
Yeah, someone here just said that. Do it 5.4, 3-valve hot with the impact.
Yep, that's how I do it. I know there's people out there that think that you should, spray WD-40 down into the cylinder, down into the well there, and then take a hand ratchet and just crack it loose, and then maybe. I believe Ford's procedure is to spray some penetrating oil down into each hole and let it sit in there for X amount of time, whatever it might be. But I know that from my experience, I've used a 1/2-inch impact, gotten the motor hot. And I found that fogging the intake tends to break down a little bit of the carbon that's sitting down in the bottom of the spark plug. That's just the luck that I've had with it.
We got another
Tim,
Spanish.
okay, hang on one second. Tim, I agree. The 2 back ones are the hardest to get to. They like to break. And I think that part of it is because you don't get that perfect instant torque like you do the front 6. That's my thought.
All right, so Alejandro here says when he tries to start the car, he gets a little vapor coming out of the front driver's side, doesn't know exactly from where, and he had gasoline come out of a line to check the pump, and nothing came out. So
come out of the line like the vacuum hose for the regulator? Is that
no,
what he
no,
means?
he's talking about the line for the gas for the fuel pump.
Oh,
So,
okay.
It sounds like he's not getting gas, but a vapor coming out of the front. I mean, I don't know what kind of car it is, but front driver's side, that's usually where the where the air filter and all the plumbing for it is. So you might have a hose off somewhere there
Sure.
that's spitting something out. You're
You wanna
seeing. I mean, I don't know.
Do it in Spanish too for him?
Yeah, well, of course. Sí. Alejandro, no sé qué tipo de carro que tienes ahí, pero tal vez típicamente por la mano izquierda ahí es donde ponen los filtros de aire y todos los tubos que van ahí. So, tal vez tienes algo ahí que está desconectado o tal vez está rompido y está saliendo algún tipo de humo por ahí. Que no está saliendo gasolina de las líneas, eso obviamente hay que chequear su corriente ahí, si tienes voltaje y tierra ahí, tal vez necesita una bomba, no sé. Pero hace sus chequeos.
Jürgen came on here, ¿Qué pasó con Fritz? Where's Fritz, correct?
Yep. What happened with Fritz?
Fritz is, as many of you know, Fritz worked at a shop or owns his own shop right here in Fond du Lac. And it was just becoming too much for him to do this and to do the shop. To run a shop, most of you guys on here know, that's more than a full-time job. That's a, 12-hour, you ran a shop 12 hours a day?
I just got out of that death sentence. It's a lot. It'll kill you.
Yeah.
So he went the other way with that decision.
He chose the shop, and that's completely fine. That's what he wanted to do. It was wonderful having him here part-time with us to help out with our Spanish side, but he chose the shop to spend his time at, and that's perfectly fine. So we ended up getting Peter all the way from New York. All right. What is the secret to removing a serious wedgie?
Get out your needle nose.
Can't say I know, Glenn. You let me know when you find out.
You start when you have two ECMs, each controlling a bank on a V-type engine, and there's a dead signal from the upstream O2 controlled by one ECM, and that same ECM is throwing timing codes.
So in that point, would you just diagnose that like 2 inline 3s or 2 inline 4s, whatever it may be? If it's a V8, V6, V12, it'd be 2 inline 8s. That would really just be a diagnosing of a single bank, right? So it's setting timing codes, but it's got a dead upstream O2.
That sounds like something European.
Nick, how are you defining dead O2? Is it that the signal is stuck? Can you force it rich? Can you force it lean? Is there an actual timing issue that's throwing everything off so much on that one bank that maybe the O2 sensor seems like it's dead, but it's just stuck either rich or lean because the timing is off? Do you have a timing issue or do you have a sensor issue? Is where I would start. I would first start by trying to, right, yeah, I would first start by trying to make that O2 sensor move somehow. Force it rich, force it lean.
Should unplug it and see what happens.
All right, Justin's here from JM Diag. How's it going, Justin?
Alejandro is responding. He's got a 96 Lumina. Yep, so they definitely have all that plumbing right there on the left.
Okay.
I would, if you got, si tienes algo saliendo como humo del frente ahí de este lado, hay que chequear por ahí, definitivamente entonces.
When you're suspecting an AFR on the Fritz, other than looking at scan data, is it your habit to use a microamp clamp or a scope to do further testing? Eric, I don't have a microamp clamp. During that wideband class that I did last year, we tried looking at it with a standard 20 amp, 60 amp clamp, and we weren't getting anywhere. It just doesn't show you what you want. I then took and wired in, what did I do? Did I look at it in series with a meter? I think in that class I actually took the meter and wired it into the circuit to actually watch the milliamps back and forth. But on some of these vehicles, really the only way that you're going to be able to do it is to look at scan data. And then pray that your scan data is accurate too, because it's hit and miss on some of them. I found that a car has been losing coolant and overheating, passed through several technicians, but it was the overflow siphon hose that dropped off. Well, that'll do it.
And there's, do you think an incandescent test light is dangerous to a starting tech? Well, not nearly as dangerous as a power probe.
I agree. A test light is safer.
A test light is far safer, and if you're truly a beginning tech, you're not giving him computer diagnostics anyway. You're giving him like, here, check your fuel pump, check voltage at this purge valve or whatever. You're not
window motor circuits or something like that.
Exactly. So
keep them away from intricate stuff in the beginning. In the beginning, you know. Glenn was looking for a more definitive answer on that yoga pants question. You know, maybe one of those indexing pry bars. You just, you know, get it in there and. But incandescent test lights can be dangerous on some computer-controlled circuits. They can overload the circuit.
Exactly. But again, for a starting tech, odds are he's not getting into that particular diagnostic. I would hope not anyway. Otherwise, that's really a recipe for disaster.
So Nick was talking European. He's talking a 760 Li V12 with that O2 sensor stuck at 0. Could it be a bad computer causing both?
It could be, but that would be probably the last thing I would look at. It's more likely a bad wire or a bad mechanical condition that's going to cause that, more so than a bad computer.
I'm not sure, because it's setting timing codes and it's got a stuck O2 at 0 volts. Is it using O2 to look at timing codes, or is it just using cam and crank correlation? I wonder what the PCM is actually looking at for that. Might it use O2 a little bit for that? Maybe. Would it maybe move the actuator and look for a change in the O2? Maybe. But I'm kind of thinking you might have two problems here.
Yeah,
is what it's looking like.
I would definitely start with the timing. If it's throwing timing codes and you've got a biased O2 sensor, then I would definitely start by looking at your timing, your mechanical, physical timing of the engine.
But having that O2 stuck at 0 is kind of odd. I would, you know, start with the circuit, make sure that everything is functioning in the circuit. Explain actual versus calculated load. Is there a difference? And are they useful in diagnosing low power complaints or in conjunction with mass airflow diagnosing? We talked about load in that mass airflow class, about how you want that load to be up there, like 100% load is what the engineer calculated out to be, that to be 100% of what that engine can produce. We did use that load PID when we were doing mass airflow diagnostics. You know, we ran that thing up to its peak performance, and our actual load was only like 80% or something like that. Calculated load and actual load. I'll get back to you on a good answer for that, Eric. I don't want to say the wrong thing on that.
All right, so Alejandro is now asking how would we know if the PCM is not functioning? Well, si el PCM, los PCMs nunca fallan con todos los circuitos. Típicamente tú vas a perder un circuito en su computadora. So, hay que saber más o menos cuál está buscando. En este caso, si es de la bomba de gas, que no, obviamente hay que chequear si está llegando su señal de la computadora para cerrar el relay. Ese chequeo es, tú puedes hacer simplemente con el test light. Si está dando su señal para cerrar el relay, bueno, está haciendo su trabajo, la falla es otra cosa.
If you're diagnosing a lean condition and you're measuring fuel pressure, is there an instance where you could have good pressure but low volume?
Yes, it's rare. It is a rare, and you know, they sell a great $900 fuel test kit out there. I think it's Mighty Vax that gives you volume as well as pressure, obviously. And well, I think I've had to use it maybe twice in 10 years. So it's wasn't worth the $900. You're better off. You can always check your volume with a graduated cylinder. They do usually give you specs.
Yeah, sometimes. I'm just trying to think if there's any specific example that I could come up with where you would have adequate pressure but inadequate volume. Because usually if you lose volume, you lose pressure.
Usually, but it depends. could be restricted. I mean, I have come across it a couple times in my life. I can't. It's been a while, so I can't remember the exact circumstance. But it is and usually when you get to that volume test, you've already either changed the wrong part or you're grasping at straws. But it is if nothing, if things aren't adding up or equaling, then yeah, by all means test your volume, because you can have low volume and sufficient pressure. Absolutely.
And then while you're doing it, you might as well check the alcohol or ethanol content right away too. Eric's asking the questions. All right, that's good. Eric, you got some great questions today.
He's looking for a T-shirt. I think he's been nominated by a couple of viewers here.
Freddie said, sounds like a bad pressure regulator. I think he's referring to that Lumina, that one that Alejandro's having issues with. I kind of agree. That is what it sounds like.
He said he was getting no fuel out of the...
Eric cheats publicly. Make sure I'm staying caught up here.
I have a lean condition and my tire is a bit flat. Can you check Miso's timing belt with a test light? Sounds good. We can do it over the internet.
Do you recommend using a piece of aluminum siding off your house to check the surface of a cylinder head? Like, are you talking the straightness of
as long as you didn't bend it while you removed it from your house, sure.
Yeah, no, they make tools for that. Buy yourself a straight edge.
And a straight edge, I was being sarcastic. Yeah. A straight edge, they say, you can't even lay them in your toolbox. They have to be hung.
They're supposed to be
They got to have a protective thing you put on them after you're done using them. Straight edges, it's not even, you can't even really use a ruler.
I mean, we're talking thousandths of an inch here.
You're talking,
a piece of aluminum siding's not going to do it. A ruler from Walmart or whatever is not going to do it. They make specific tools for that, or take it to your local rebuilder and have the head checked and decked right away. Which do you prefer, northern summers, southern winters, northern winters, or southern summers?
Honestly, I prefer
northern summers.
Northern summers and southern winters. Someday I'll be a snowbird. Alejandro is saying he sees 2 fuse boxes on each side of the motor. Yep, and there's going to be one under the glove box too. Hay dos cajas ahí con el motor, y hay uno ahí adentro donde el panel de instrumentos.
Chris said he's still waiting for his hat. Chris, that picture that you emailed me with your Wells hat, that was hilarious. I got a good laugh out of that. All the hats and shirts have been sent out, so they should be here, or they should be there soon. For all of you guys that are overseas, it does take a little bit longer to get there, but they have all been shipped. If you don't get it, let me know, and we'll look into it on this end.
Your biggest car fix hack. Scotty taught them to fix broken bolts with a welder. Well, I hope that's extracting broken bolts with a welder, I'm guessing.
Actually, there was a video one time that was put out with a broken sway bar link, or sway bar bushing bolt, I believe it was. It was an older car, and I think maybe the customer had something to do with that, where they didn't want to spend the money to extract the bolt, so he welded the bracket for the sway bar bushing directly onto the frame. So it's not coming off again, you'd have to cut it off.
Yeah, that's not quite what I had in mind. What I was thinking is put the nut to the broken thing and weld it to it.
Or weld something to that so you can spin it.
Burning oil in an 09 Acadia. Determine rings or valve seals. Valve seals do-it-yourself, rings not.
Is there a common rule of variation for injector-to-injector drop when doing an injector drop test?
Say that again, where were you?
So when you're doing an injector drop test with a scan tool, is there a common variation from injector to injector regarding the pressure drop difference, like a rule of thumb type of thing?
Oh, you mean the
so you drop off.
As far as pressure drop? No, there really should be no variance. That's the whole point of that test. You're looking for zero variance.
I would look for very, very little wiggle room. Any variance, I think, might be pointing you in a direction of an issue.
Every test I've ever done on it, it points you right to the bad injector, because all the rest are exactly the same. They'll lose 2 or 3 psi.
Usually, it's a significant change when you're looking at Injector. How long did it take? Where did that go? It just moved. There it is. How long did it take you guys to get so good at diagnostics? Well, it's not really about the time that it takes.
How long? Believe me, you get taken to school every time you come across a new problem. You know, I'm still learning diagnostics.
Well, everybody
you
is.
know,
Everybody in this chat room right now is still learning every day. It's just, I guess that's the most fun part about this job, about fixing cars for a living, about diagnosing. It's the learning that we get to do every day. It's never the same thing. It's never boring. We're constantly learning, constantly reading, constantly looking at YouTube videos to learn more on. So I wouldn't say that it's how long in terms of years or anything. It's just how much effort you put into it to get good at it.
Here's another one in Spanish. Alex Lee wants to know if we have a video for CVTs for Nissan Sentras 2.0. No, hay bastantes videos sobre los CVTs por ahí. No, aquí no hacemos nada sobre líquidos. Específicamente estamos tratando de chequear todo que tiene, todo sobre los sistemas electrónicos. Pero ese problema es muy común con los Nissans y sus CVTs. Yo tengo un Nissan Quest con 100,000 millas, ya tenía que poner una transmisión. Y es tan común ese problema que están vendiendo garantías más largos hasta 100,000 millas con esos transmisiones ahora.
I agree with you, Smitty. The problems are literally endless. You could have, one code on one exact model, 2008 F-150 setting a misfire code or setting a lean code or something like that. Same engine, 100 different trucks could have 100 different problems. I mean, it really is endless. It's insane, but it's so much fun. At what point do you tell a customer it's not worth repairing their vehicle?
Yeah, it's just like Steve here says, when the repair exceeds the value of the car.
Yeah.
And, well, it depends on the car, too, because a lot of times you'll have a $2,000 car and it needs $1,200 worth of work. And the way I would always tell people is basically, are you going to take the if you're just going to buy another $2,000 car, sometimes you're better off with the devil that you know than the devil that you don't know.
Exactly.
But if you're going to take that $2,000 and put it down on a new $10,000 car, well, that's probably the right decision to make. But if you're just going to go buy another beater, then stick with the one you got. You're better off.
Right. Yeah, because you already know that vehicle. You put brake pads on it last year and it got a tire out end or something. You buy something else for that low budget, you could end up with an even bigger problem. Definitely. Right after the crusher hits bottom. Yeah. Which manufacturer of truck do you prefer working on?
That depends. I mean, what one do you prefer driving?
I don't know.
I mean, I like Chevys because I'm a Chevy guy. I've worked on trillions of them, and they don't change as much as everyone else's.
Sure.
Ford likes to innovate.
Yeah, I would say whatever one you're most familiar with, and that's really going to go for cars across the board. Whatever you're most familiar with is what you're going to really enjoy working on the most. You learn the intricacies, you learn the little things that manufacturer does. You learn how to get through wiring diagrams quicker. You learn how to get through service info faster. I mean, there's just little intricacies that you learn over time working for a specific manufacturer that makes it more efficient to work on and easier to work on, and I guess you kind of do grow to prefer working on that kind of vehicle.
Exactly, and it's just because we all like what's familiar to us, that's all. Let's see, there was something here. What's the best program for information like wiring schematics? All that, Identifix, well, there's Mitchell's as well, and
there's a lot. There's
we call it some data, we call it some data, no data, but they all pretty much go on the same. They're given the same information they purchase from all the OEs, so it's just who has it organized better. And after using all three, I would say Identifix is probably the easiest one to navigate and find stuff on. But again, that's a matter of preference as well. They're all going to give you pretty much the same info. It's just,
But sometimes there's comparisons that need to be done between the two. I mean, we brought it up in classes in the past where we've gotten a diagram from Identifix and a diagram from AllData, and they've been different. You know, same vehicle, they're missing pieces, wiring colors are different. Sometimes there's a comparison that having more than one is the way to go if you can afford it. Extended service intervals on late model vehicles. I'm not a fan.
yeah, nah, I've never been. I use synthetic oil in my car, and I
Yep.
still change it at 3,000.
I'm a 3,000 mile guy. Oil is cheap insurance. I mean,
is.
you can do an oil change at home for $30 with synthetic oil. I'm all for it. I don't like these extended service maintenance.
Especially they
intervals.
got everything nowadays is VVT and turbo. Like you really should have good clean oil for both of those systems.
Yeah.
You can't 15,000 miles. Even if it's
crazy.
even if it's fully synthetic oil, it will break down and it's still your how much work can your filter do? You know, 15,000 miles is a lot of filtration. So
That's a lot of miles, a
lot
lot of
of
time.
particles. So
And
yeah.
it's going to make a difference too if you're doing a lot of highway driving or a lot of city driving. You know, maybe you could stretch it a little more if you're doing all highway driving. You know, cruising 60 miles an hour one way every day for 60 miles. I mean, that might be something where you could maybe push it off a little bit more. But oil is cheap insurance, and you know, a lot of these newer turbo motors, I like to compare the oil to old diesel oil. You know, you drain oil out of an old 7.3 diesel, compare it to a 2-liter turbo motor. They're very similar in how black they get and how much they stink. The oil just gets used up. I don't like it. I don't like the oil change intervals. And you know, we got to figure too, what are manufacturers doing? They're building a car to get it out of warranty. They really only care about the car while it's under warranty, because that's when they have to pay for it. Once it's out of warranty, it's your baby. It's your problem.
Exactly. So,
So-
doing 15,000 mile oil changes will be sure to sell a motor at 100.
Yeah, I mean, that's 4 oil changes and 60,000. And then the vehicle's out of warranty. So you get your 4 oil changes, and then it's yours. All right, let's get caught up here.
Yeah, there's pulse width modulation equals duty cycle percent.
Sergeant Tech making any appearances today? Yeah.
It is correct. Yes. Marek K. Yes, that's the way I would interpret that. Never tell it.
Smoking on cold startup also is a good indicator of valve seals. You know, that initial startup.
Yeah, that first start.
Yep,
Yeah.
the valve
Blue
seals,
puff.
the oil has dripped down into the cylinder and gotten in there. So that first startup, you get a big puff of smoke and then it goes away. That's
Yeah, whereas
very-
with rings, it gets harder with the hotter it gets,
Yeah.
the more it smokes usually.
If I'm listening to AC/DC at high volume and blow a fuse, can I use my Juicy Fruit wrapper as a replacement to get me out of this horrible situation? Freddie, my answer to you is no. Never put anything in the fuse holder that's not a fuse and not the correct size. That Juicy Fruit wrapper, who knows how much amperage it can handle?
And it is paper, so it will burn.
Or if it's an actual metal wrapper or aluminum or whatever it might be, there's no telling how much amperage it can hold. That fuse blew for a reason. You could start the car on fire. You could have a huge issue. Never put anything in the fuse hole that's not the correct size fuse. Is there a single one most important thing about troubleshooting?
Is there what?
Single one most important thing. Jurgen,
Yeah,
that
don't
is
jump
a
to
great question.
conclusions.
Don't jump to conclusions, and don't put yourself on a single narrow-minded track. You want to be very broad in the beginning and begin to narrow things down, but never mark anything off of your list until you've definitively proved out that it's bad. You just move it down your list. You know, as you diagnose and as you grow as a diagnostician, you learn to pick up on clues. Every technician who's been doing it for a long time, when they pull the car into their bay, they already have an idea of maybe what's going on. They felt the brakes pulsate. They felt something else happen. They felt something else happen. And when the car started up, it seemed to crank a little bit longer, or it sputtered on initial startup. That's all clues that we're gathering to form a hypothesis about this car. as it's first coming into the bay. Now we scan a check engine light or something like that. It's all building this story, but we have to remain very broad at first before you dive in and become very narrow-minded. Otherwise, you'll end up backing yourself into a corner and wasting a ton of time.
Not to mention, you also want to, I guess, take a systems approach. Like,
Sure.
usually the failed component isn't the reason why it failed. There's usually something attached to it that failed. So don't just change the one part. Look at the next three before you go. And so, otherwise, you end up having to comebacks and end up having to spend out of your pocket.
What is a catalyzing radiator and how does it work? I don't know. That's a great question. Something I'm going to look into. Catalyzing radiator. I don't know, Keith, you got me stumped. Tell us about the one car you'll never forget because it kicked your butt. You want to go first?
I wouldn't know where to begin.
There's so many, right? That's the way I am. I'll start then. There's one that sticks out in my mind that I believe I shared with Kevin from EX Motorsports. We were swapping stories over an email one time. There was a Mitsubishi, I believe it was, SUV. I can't remember what it was. I was just starting out, maybe a year or two right out of school. And electrical diag wasn't my forte at that point. I wasn't, I was still learning. Well, I'm still learning today, but still learning. And I spent hours on this vehicle. It was intermittently, the rear hatch wouldn't open. It was a button hatch. It wasn't a mechanical latch. It was an electrical button that you had to push to open this rear hatch. And it wouldn't open intermittently. Trying to diagnose it, spent hours on it. Finally, I came to the conclusion that it needed a module, but I found out that the module was over like $1,500 or something like that. So I got somebody else involved. I wanted to prove it out to myself to be 100% certain, like I always tell you guys, always be 100% certain before you put a part on it. I wanted to be able to prove it, and I couldn't prove it to myself. I even came in late after the shop closed to try and figure this thing out, and I could not figure it out. The next day I came in, asked one of the other guys to take a look at it with me, and he had it figured out in 15 minutes. It was a bad wire, a bad switch, or something so stupid that I looked at the car and I just shook my head, and I was like, this is going to be a great start to this day. I was so frustrated, and what happened is I went down this super narrow-minded path, and I got myself distracted and ended up pulling interior panels apart. I'll never forget that car. I'll never forget that job. It kicked my butt. I spent way too many hours working on it.
Yeah, it can happen. We had a Saturn come in on the hook one time, needed a motor, punched a hole right through the block. So we put a used motor in it.
Okay.
Go to start it up, and it's doing all kinds of funny stuff. I can't remember if it was revving or if it was idling hard. I don't remember the exact drivability concern, but I do remember the failure because we spent a whole day chasing our tails on this.
Sure.
And the bottom line was there was a, and this is one that I'll always remember because, again, it was just the weirdest thing. You wouldn't even connect the two together, but what was causing the problem was the trunk was full of water. And this is Saturn, so there's no batteries or real electronics in the trunk like some of these Chryslers and foreign cars. But the wheel well, not the wheel well, but that corner of the trunk where there's like a light was full of water, and the ground to the parking light was corroded from sitting in the water.
Okay.
We cleaned that up. We cleared the water out, cleaned that ground to the light, and that fixed our drivability issue.
Okay. That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, weird stuff. Never,
Looks like Eric's headed out of here. Thanks for joining us, Eric. I will get you a shirt on the way. It's not going to have a pocket, but you definitely earned one. Those were great questions.
Let's see. I've seen a sticking throttle cable due to a bad ground cable. Welding during startup.
Interesting.
Haven't seen that.
I haven't either.
Seen sticking throttle cables for various other reasons, like improperly routed, secondary ignition cables and things like that. But
I had a throttle cable that I took off one time, and you know how you kind of just set them up off to the side? Well, I was doing something, and I bumped it, and of course it fell back into place a little bit, and it landed right across both battery terminals and melted the cable that way. I've had that happen.
I've actually put a throttle cable into one of my own cars once, aftermarket, Pioneer, put it in, and the sheath was too long, So I guess the first time I really went like full wide open throttle, I ended up stretching the cable because it actually prevented the cable from fully traveling. So from that point forward, I was never really able to achieve more than 50% throttle on this thing. And man, what an impact it made on my fuel economy.
Oh, I bet. I bet. What is counter electromotive force, and why I ground the relay on the BMW secondary air injection pump in the rest position? This was talked about in that Tech Connect episode, but actually I have a video here that Les sent me. This is an example that he had dealt with one time. This was a Chevy Cruze cooling fan circuit right here. This is a cooling fan, electric cooling fan, and this car was setting a ignition relay stuck on code. All right, so he was scoping the voltage going into the relay or coming out of the relay, maybe that was it, I don't know exactly, but you can see voltage goes up to 12, and then the fan shuts off, and you can see it's supposed to go down right around 0 here and stay down. This might even be the ignition relay voltage, I'm not sure, whatever this might be. But as the fan is slowing down, you can still see the fan spinning. It is creating its own energy at that point, and it's keeping our voltage high. Just like our BMW went negative current when we were looking at it, it's not actually negative current, it's just current flowing in the opposite direction. When that thing got shut off, that motor's still spinning, there's still magnets inside of that motor, it's still going to create its own energy. It's just like an alternator at that point pretty much. It's a generator, it's creating its own energy. This cooling fan did the exact same thing, and it kept the voltage high. Now this was kind of a weird one. It was the cooling fan circuit and the ignition relay circuit were spliced together under the fuse box, if I understand the story right. And it was kind of a one-off thing. But he said after he removed the spliced wires that weren't supposed to be together, those circuits, he didn't notice any other problems with the system. So I'm not sure what they were stealing voltage for. Were they stealing ignition relay voltage for the cooling fan, or using cooling fan to power the, whatever it was, caused issues and caused this thing to set codes, because our voltage was over that 0 volt mark when that relay was turned off. So I thank you, Les, for that little story that you sent us. That was fantastic.
We got a couple in Spanish here. The first one is asking about web pages to get wiring diagrams for Toyotas made in Brazil. I would say maybe in Brazil. Here we don't really have access to stuff like that, and I would love to, because sometimes you get a gray market car. I've got a little project car myself that I've got very few. I've actually had to kind of build my own wiring diagram with a by toning it out, showing where what wire goes to what. But I should probably say that in Spanish too. So yo no sé dónde puedes encontrar diagramas extranjeros, pero me supongo si está hecho en Brasil y está vendido en Brasil, probablemente hay alguien ahí en Brasil que lo tienen. Yo no sé, espero que sí. The other, let's see, he has a problem with a Chevy Silverado. Corrientes y la tierra es la starter. Pero no prende ENL. Well, it sounds like he's giving the starter, he's directly powering the starter, nothing's happening. So that tells me, yeah, you got a bad starter. Eso me parece, Santos, que este starter no está bien. Si está poniendo corriente directo y no está haciendo nada, pero también tiene que chequear su cable principal de la batería para saber seguramente que no está perdiendo voltaje. Más que medio voltaje, dicen más que medio volt perdido en este circuito es mal, pero yo vi, tú puedes perder un volt completo y todavía va a arrancar, pero más que eso no.
We had a question here about, where did it go? Tony asked, should automotive students earn ASE certifications prior to employment to earn better pay? I think, in my opinion, everybody should get ASE certified. It's really the only way that we have to recognize ourselves as being competent. Now, if you have the patch on your arm, that doesn't mean that you can fix a sandwich necessarily. It just means that you can pass a test.
Well,
but
you do have to have years. You do need a couple of years of experience to get the certification. So I think they give the G without any,
I think so,
I
yeah.
think the
You
Gs you can get
G1
without
maintenance.
Yeah, I think you get
Yeah.
the G1s without any experience, but
But the normal
any of
ones
the
are all
As,
2,000 hours, I believe is what it is.
yeah.
But still, guys, ASE is the only way that we have to say that we've done something as a individual to share our qualification, I guess. If anything, saying that you're ASE certified just shows the shop owner that you're dedicated to doing something for yourself. You're dedicated to the job. You're dedicated to actually going out and taking these tests. It's just another way to show that you're a dedicated employee, I guess, is the way I look at it.
It doesn't hurt.
No, it definitely
And you're right.
not.
You can get paid more with these certifications, and a lot of places won't even hire you without them. I mean, not in the private world, but in the dealer world, it's a lot harder to get into those dealers without those certifications. So, let's see. Someone was asking about a Chrysler Town and Country using a 5-volt bias to check the O2 sensor heater performance. I've never heard of such a thing. Although some of these new sensors have 5-6 wires to them. So.
Yeah.
Maybe, but
well,
not,
this is an
not
01.
in an 01 Chrysler. No, it's just on and off. That should be a 4-wire plug on that thing.
I don't know off the top of my head on that one. There's something else in here that I wanted to say. Oh, using
others?
picoscope that you missed with the snap-on. I've never gotten into the snap-on one and the Pico one in the same car and said, wow, I missed this with the snap-on. I just like the Pico because it's so much easier to use. It flows easier, it's more fluid. Zooming and stuff on there is 10 times easier. I can take it, put it on a flash drive, give it to Peter. I can email it. I can bring it to my computer at the office. I can do so many different things with the Pico file. I don't have to download ShopStream's program or any of that other stuff. I just find it easier to use.
Scanner Danner has a field manual. Yeah, there was someone asking about other places for information besides maybe YouTube.
Go to your classroom training.
Yeah.
Classroom training is phenomenal. There's always different ways to learn and different ways that people learn.
Yeah, the local trade schools, whether it be a BOCES out east or out here, I forget what they call them. I think they're called tech colleges out here, but out east we have BOCES, and those places are usually pretty affordable for the knowledge that you're going to gain from it.
Or attend training events. I mean, Vision coming up here at the beginning of March in Kansas City, or Automechanica in August in Atlanta. Attend training events. Great choice, get the L1. L1 is advanced drivability, right? Mm-hmm. L2 is diesel, L3 is hybrid. Those are the advanced classes. All the A's are like engine performance, suspension, brakes, manual trans, auto trans, engine repair. There's another one I can't remember.
Don't do a second language. I don't know if I can handle this all at once. Well, the second language thing will normally be a separate video.
Right.
We did just put one out last week
Mm-hmm.
in Spanish. Usually you won't have the confusion of listening to 2 languages, which if you don't speak the second language, I hear you, it can get kind of, definitely be a distraction.
Sure,
so.
sure. Yeah, I agree. Get A1 through 8 first. That'll get you your master certified. And then do your L1 after that. I just wanted to show you guys some stuff really quickly on our website. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with our website, wellsve.com. It's more than just doing part searches and that kind of thing. I just want to show you some of the cool stuff that we have available to you guys. So I'm going to start by just entering in a vehicle. Let's just go with a 2010. Let's just grab an Impala. I want to show you what we have to offer here, just in case you guys don't know that this is out here. This is free to anybody who wants to use it. This is going to give us the part numbers and stuff that we have, and the different parts that we have for your vehicle, but there's some technical information in here that I want to share as well. And depending on the vehicle, it's going to depend on how long this takes to load, how much information we're loading here.
Let's see, Mark has a good question. If the fuel pump supply 100% duty cycle, the multimeter should show battery voltage on the fuel pump. Yes.
Yeah, it would be dropping 100% of the load.
Exactly. 100% duty cycle just means it's always on. It stays on. So then a multimeter, depending on the duty cycles and the refresh rates and everything else, it might not, like if you're trying to check voltage on something that's cycling you might not get a
Yeah.
good reading because they just don't refresh fast enough.
Yep, you might want to use the scope. All right, so we can do firing orders on here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but we have firing orders for almost every vehicle on the road. Looks like this. So like this is an 04 to 11 Chevy 3.5. Lists out the cylinder locations. This is a transverse mounted V6, this 3.5. So we got cylinder 1, 3, and 5 on the back, 2, 4, and 6 on the front. Firing order is listed as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we also have the coils back here. So coil number 1 right here is coil 1 and 4. That's going to go to these 2 cylinders, 2 and 6, and then 2 and 5, and then 3 and 6. So it's just a lot of information all on one page right here that in service information you might have to go to multiple places to find and to track down. So that's one thing we offer. And then we also just recently put up here Tpms Relearn procedures. So we're doing an Impala. It takes one of our 315 megahertz sensors, and our learn procedure is R109. You can see here the different relearn procedures. So we're going to go turn the ignition on, press the trip odometer, going through the dash to learn tire pressures, and then start left front, right rear, left rear. The horn should beep and then beep twice when it's done. Or you use the key fob with the key on and hold down lock, unlock to put you into diag mode or diagonal sensor or learn mode, whatever you want to call it. And then again, you run through the same process. So this is available on almost every vehicle as well for free to you guys. I know sometimes these things are really hard to find out on the internet, out on service information. You're searching through a lot of different pages.
Yeah,
so
some of it takes a while to find.
yeah, so we do offer that, and then we have different parts breakdowns here for you guys. So if you're doing, you're looking for a purge solenoid, we listed out California, or canister for federal or California emissions. You can always click on the part number. It'll bring up a PDF. It'll open a new page. You can see a picture. You can see any attributes about it. You can see what it all fits. And then we include sales drawings as well that you can have access to. That gives you dimensions. Sometimes there'll be specs on these sales drawings depending on the component. So just another little perk that we offer out online. We also have a couple other things here. We have like a fan switch application. So this is really good for people who are building vehicles, building cars, that kind of thing. This kind of lets you retrofit whatever you're looking for. So you need an M16 by 1.5 thread. You need it to be normally closed, and it opens at 210 plus or minus 8. That would be the part number that you would need, and it's a 2-terminal. So this is an awesome little lookup for you. You can apply whatever you want to this for cooling fan switches. Similar thing for a relay search. If you're looking for a relay, you can select what voltage relay you want. You're doing a 12 volt. Let's say you need it to be capable of 25 amps and you're looking for 6 pins. Here's the different relays that you could buy with their pinout applications. So just another little cool bit of information that you can find out on our website. And then lastly, we can do oil pressure switches are the same way as the coolant temp or radiator fan switch, whatever you want to call it. So again, just some good information that you can have access to out on our website. Again, free of charge. And then also you can always, if you don't want to watch on YouTube, you can always go here and watch out on our website. If you click the subscribe to Wells Tech thing here, you'll put your email address in, and then I send out emails usually the Friday before the class and the Wednesday before the class, reminding you, and then you can always click on this and see the webcast right on our page if you don't want to use YouTube. Some places are blocking YouTube, so we embed it on the page here. All right, let's get back to our comments section, see what's going on. ATG training booklets are amazing. I agree. I love my ATG training booklets. They have tons and tons and tons of information. Really good training classes. I like their training. Okay, let's get back here. What did I miss, Keith? I think there was a misunderstanding there. Wait till he reads the second part. Tech school is good too. And you're right, you can go to tech school, you can get aid to go to tech school. Sometimes you can get scholarships, that kind of thing.
All right, this one here is telling me he's got no signal at the relay. to Santos there. No, Santos doesn't have the signal coming from the computer to the relay at the relay. So again, he was wondering about a bad PCM. Would you call a bad PCM at this point? Not me personally. I would go down and see if you're getting signal out of the PCM now. You know it's at the relay, or you know you don't have it at the relay, and broken wires all the time. So check it right there at the back of the PCM.
Do the old tap test on an old GM PCM. You do the tap test too.
Yep, that too.
Give it a little tap and see if it happens again.
So let me tell him in español there, Santos, que tienes que hacer ahora si no tienes el señal al relay. Hay que chequear si tienes el señal en este circuito, pero donde sale de la computadora, porque tal vez es un cable mal o una conexión mal, no necesariamente es el PCM. Y si no está saliendo del PCM, los computadores, ese circuito es un poco común en los GMs y hay que darle unos pegues ahí al PCM si no está saliendo para ver si hay algo, si algo cambia.
Okay. Brent asked, is Wells a manufacturer of any OEM parts or only aftermarket? Brent, I'm going to have a very canned answer here. Both. We manufacture for both. I cannot tell you who or what we make on the OEM side, but we do make parts at the OEM level as well as aftermarket. Let's see here. Where and what is the best place for me to purchase a Wells part? It's a good question. A lot of our product is sold through AutoZone in a Duralast box. Most of our product was, we used to have most of the line of the electronics parts. Now it's becoming hit and miss depending on what you get. Your best bet is to, you could search online, Rock Auto, Amazon, you can buy our product.
We still at Advance and O'Reilly as well, right?
Yep, but a lot of it is private labeled through their brand.
Mm-hmm. We used to see Wells in New York. We used to see it at, if you remember the good old 8 auto stores, they used to have Wells in Wells box. I think Auto Barn does too. That's other than that, you see Wells, you just see it at AutoZone and Advance.
Okay. Yes, it is a Wells part labeled in Duralast. Yeah, I agree.
All American made?
Not everything we do is American made. We have a manufacturing facility that is run by us down in Reynosa, Mexico, that we are in control of, and we send engineers down there all the time. But we do make a lot of stuff down in Mexico as well. All right, I just want to talk real quickly about the plan for 2018, guys. We're going to change things up a little bit here. Now, you guys are used to the Counterpoint and the Tech Connect videos happening a couple weeks apart. The Tech Connect was always kind of a follow-up to the live webcast. We're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to do our live webcast. It's always going to be hopefully the first Thursday of the month unless there's something going on, like the month that we'll be at Vision. So in March, we'll be at Vision in Kansas City, so there won't be a broadcast. The first Thursday, it would be the second Thursday of that month. Same thing with November. We'll be at the SEMA show in Vegas, so we won't be here, so we'll do the broadcast the following week. But we'll be doing a live broadcast. Now, guys, last year we kind of had two main focuses of the year. We focused on fuel trims, and we focused on EVAP as a system full approach with multiple months following each other. Now, this year, guys, we're going to change it up. Each broadcast is going to be different. Each broadcast is going to be its own little one-off type of thing, which is cool case studies or cool lessons, whatever it might be. We are still going to do a systems approach type of class. We're going to release two big systems approach classes this year. One's going to come out in May and one sometime around October. The May one, we are going to be focusing on VVT systems as a full VVT system approach, and then October's we are going to be focusing on GDI or gasoline direct injection. Now, these videos will be released one after the other. I'm thinking a couple video series, maybe 3, 4, 5 videos, whatever it takes to talk about the entire system, and then they'll be released one after the other. So Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, something like that. That way, if you guys want, you can binge watch them all at once, or you can watch one here, one there, whatever you want to do. But we will be still doing a full systems approach video for you guys.
Are we doing CAN and bus? Yeah, that was...
Eventually, I want to do that. We'll get into CAN and bus network diag. But nothing in the plan at this very, very moment. But we do want to get into that. Also, our Tech Connect and Counterpoint videos are going to follow each other now. Oh, with the live broadcast, if there's need for a follow-up video where we cut something apart, take something apart, answer questions, that kind of thing, then we will do a follow-up video maybe within a week or something after that. But the Tech Connect video is now going to be a follow-up to the Counterpoint video. In our Counterpoint video, we're going to be very specific, focused on a single part, like a purge valve on a GM38. Just an example that came into my head. So the Counterpoint video in that, we're going to focus on the changing of the part, the intricacies of the part, why the part maybe fails, why it's a common complaint. The Tech Connect video following will be the next night. That is going to be the diagnosis of that part and how to accurately diagnose that efficiently so that you're changing the right part the first time. That's the way our Counterpoint and Tech Connects are going to go on the channel, just so you guys know what it's going to look like. And then Peter will be doing everything that we do in English. He'll be doing in Spanish on the Wells VE channel. All right. Keith is going to be shoveling snow live. Good for you, Keith. All right. Yeah, Chris, that Toyota repair video, that's kind of the way those system videos are going to be approached, something similar to like that. I'm actually working on doing a Honda Odyssey type of repair video also, similar to the way that Toyota one turned out. I'm working on an Odyssey that might be interesting as well. Oz, we did some stuff on hybrids a year and a half ago now. At the moment, we're not getting into it, but we're always looking for more ideas. Smack the PCM.
That's what we told him to do. Well, he's saying now that he's getting voltage out of that PCM terminal where he's supposed to be getting ground. Now, my question is, are you reading that voltage at the PCM or are you reading that at the relay? Because if you're reading it at the relay and the relay is plugged in, then that voltage is just carrying over from another circuit. But if everything's disconnected and you got voltage coming straight out of the PCM, then I would say yeah, you definitely want to focus your attention down there.
The real question is, before you replace a PCM, what checks should you do to verify that your new PCM will not be damaged? Well, first of all, verify that the PCM is mounted in its correct home and that the weather seals on the hood and stuff are okay, because water damage can hurt PCMs. So you want to, that's the most visual, quick, easy thing you can check.
You want to focus on the component, like whichever circuit failed in that PCM, like if it was your injector driver circuit or your coil driver circuit, then you want to check that component because it's very likely the component itself that caused the driver to burn out.
A coil shorted or an injector shorted.
Exactly. So
it burned out the driver.
Check the component that coil is driving or that driver is driving.
Exactly. Yep. You want to verify your control coming from the component. If you don't have control, then you want to verify the component. Ford, 3-liter 3.5s were super common for the coils taking out the PCM, where you put one coil in it, and now the coil still misfires, or you still have a misfire because the PCM went bad, or somebody changed out the PCM because they were good enough to diagnose it to that point, but they left the old coil in there. Well, that new PCM could end up going bad again.
The
driver will go bad again. All right, looks like Spanky's out of here. 2-year-old's howling about something. And yes, that is Peter.
Yes.
All right. I think we're going to call it for the day. So what are you saying? So what you're saying is you should probably do an amperage draw test on each solenoid. Solenoid. Good old text to talk to text. Solenoid.
That's one way to do it.
Sure.
That's one way. You could just a simple ohms test, which isn't always the best test to do, but most of these things will give you an ohms value, like you're supposed to have, say, 7 to 14 ohms on your injector, and
Yeah, if you're
if you have 5, well, you're drawing too much heat through there.
Yeah, you could, I mean, an ohms test isn't always going to give you the answer where amperage would, but you have to have that somehow functioning.
Exactly.
Though. So your PCM control, if it's not working at that moment, you're not going to have any amperage draw. So it's kind of a tricky thing to do at that point.
Yeah, ohms, you got to be careful with ohms tests. Obviously, they'll give you a lot of, a lot of bad info. But in that case, when it's something like that, it's worth just putting the leads across it.
Yep, that's true. If the pinto's frozen, the ohms test will pass, but the amperage will
Exactly.
spike. That's a great point. So Keith and Eric definitely win shirts. Those were fantastic questions. Who do you think gets the third one? I had a lot of good questions. Nick.
Well, Nick
was dealing with a lot of Europeans. He had a lot of good questions.
We weren't able to really keep up with it all either, so we're going to have to copy, paste, and analyze.
How about a viewer's choice for the third one? Who do you guys think deserves the third shirt? What do you guys think?
Me.
Okay, who do you guys think deserves a shirt, but you can't vote for yourself?
Me.
Yeah. Now nobody's voting for anybody else. I see how it is. Bunch of greedy guys just want t-shirts.
Still waiting for the last pair I won.
Keith wants to donate his shirt to JM Diagnostics. Well, that's 3 votes for Spanky. Burning oil guy? This guy. All right, I'm going to give the third one to Spanky. That's 4 votes for Spanky already. So I'll have to get her email address or have her email me. We'll get a shirt out to Spanky. So Eric, Keith, and Spanky all win shirts, but I guess Keith's donating his to JM Diagnostics, so that's nice of you. Guys, next class, February 1st. Let me verify that. Yes, February 1st is going to be our next class. We will be working on a vehicle. We're going to get something in the shop here. I'm kind of thinking I might have a parasitic draw problem that we might get to play with. We'll see if that one works out, but that will be February 1st. 11 o'clock as always for the English class, and then 2 o'clock same day for you, for Peter, for Spanish. We will be working on something. We're going to get back to the normal swing of things here, and that one will have some sort of question where everybody who answers will be eligible to win. All right. Send Eric the one with the pockets on the back. All right, guys. Unless there's anything else that was pressing that I missed, I think we are going to call it for the day here. I think I covered everything I wanted to. Yeah, I think we're good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. It's just something a little bit different. Just wanted to, kind of ease into the new year, kind of get a feeling of what you guys thought. You guys gave us a lot of really good ideas of what you want to see in 2018. I think from here, guys, we're going to call it. Thank you for watching. Thanks for joining us. Peter, you want to say anything else?
Thanks for being here. Thanks for all the great questions. Thanks for your attention in Espanol. And, well, we look forward to seeing you next month.
Yeah.
Come by, check us out.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick, the Spanish channel looks like this, guys. Let me get over to, there's us talking. This is the Spanish channel. You'll know it's the Spanish channel. It's got the silver logo, okay? This is where our Spanish is going to be out on Wells VE. You just go ahead, search Wells VE. These are the 2 channels you can see right now that we're live now on Wells Vehicle Electronics in English. This is going to be where you're going to find Spanish, where Peter's videos are going to be going. Alrighty, so I think that's it. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. I hope everybody had a wonderful new year. Stay warm out there. Drive safe. A lot of the country right now is getting some nasty weather. All right, I think that's it. So until February 1st, guys, we'll see you then. Everybody have a great week and happy wrenching.
Take care.
Thank you.
See you on Keith's live feed.